G'day, I'm Damo from Compnow and welcome to our What's New in Managing and Securing Apple Devices in Education webinar. I now do a lot of enterprise-focused work, but prior to joining Compnow 2 years ago, I had an almost exclusive focus on Apple devices in education, both as an Apple partner and as a customer for 2 years as the IT manager for a Victorian primary school. And that's on top of being raised by 2 teachers. So, I firmly believe that educating our kids is too important not to take every benefit technology can provide to maximise learning outcomes, either by supporting innovation in the classroom or reducing a teacher's or IT's admin workload. And what we're going to hear about from Jamf today will be a huge help for any school. And there's no one better to hear from than Francesco Garbellini, Education Senior Account Manager at Jamf. Welcome, Francesco.
Hi, Damian. Thank you so much. It's very exciting to be here today and run through a little bit about the Jamf education portfolio and then cover what's new and what was announced at Apple WWDC in terms of education enhancement. So let's get started. Jamf has always been about helping organizations succeed with Apple. And in education, our focus has always been about empowering student success. We're proud of the education community we support, and Jamf is now helping 42 million students globally succeed with Apple across over 40,000 schools and universities via one-to-one and shared Apple devices. And thanks to the Compnow team, because a lot of that success is also thanks for what you do every day with our schools.
We do a lot of great work together.
We do. Of those 42 million devices, more than 1 million are here in ANZ across K-12 and higher education. So that's still a good number, and it will keep growing for sure. As I've mentioned, our mission at Jamf has always been about helping organizations succeed with Apple. And we've been laser focused with that for the past 21 years. As part of that mission, we have a history and commitment to something we call same-day support. Same-day support means less work for you, faster access to new Apple features, and better control for your admins. For 11 years running, Jamf has delivered support for new Apple operating system the day they are released. If your educators or students are craving that hot new features from Apple, it's easy to kick off a mass operating system upgrade across your entire Apple fleet. On the flip side, if you want to pause the availability of a new operating system, you can delay the upgrades for up to 90 days, so your team can take time to test and validate before making the OS available to everyone. One of the ways we support Apple in education is through our management systems, taking Apple consumer simplicity to education at scale. Our management capabilities not only simplify the end user experience, they're also a great way to empower both the learners and the teachers in and that beyond the classroom. We will briefly go through the Jamf education product portfolio to show you what is possible in managing and securing your Apple fleet. Let's get started with managing Apple in education. We'll help our customers solve a variety of critical management problems. We can help you save time during provisioning with zero-touch deployment. We allow you to deliver consistent setting across your devices and maintain accurate rich inventory data. We provide learning and teaching that simplify workflows, save on workload, and empower student choice and personalization. We empower parents to also feel secure when the devices are at home. And we provide integration to a range of applications that simplify the configuration of tools for classroom practice, such as Explain Everything, Showbie, and many more. It all comes together to deliver a secure and simple end user experience. Let's start looking at our portfolio, starting from Jamf School. Designed for education, Jamf School enables deployment and management of devices with ease, so educators can focus on creating the best learning environment with Apple. Jamf School comes with some great features that we will briefly cover, such as dashboard, classroom management, location, and the sync to Apple School Manager. So the dashboard offers a comprehensive overview. It's an easy way to track devices, users, and apps while easily identifying issues that need attention. Having to manage multiple locations or schools is no problem with Jamf School. With location support, you can easily manage each location and each device's users and groups separately. Easily manage classes by dragging and dropping the required apps and content and creating restrictions. Teachers can request apps from Jamf School, which are then shared with the IT admin directly. And we will talk more about this later. To extend that classroom capabilities, Jamf School offers 3 apps that extend education workflows on the devices they are installed on: the Jamf Teacher, the Jamf Parent, and the Jamf Student app. The Jamf Teacher can be used independently to keep students focused, but it's best to use alongside the Apple Classroom app in order to maximize learning in the classroom. Jamf Teacher is a native iOS and macOS app, but also available on the web, which means teachers that don't have Apple devices can also harness its powers. Teacher often needs to focus students on a number of apps and websites during lesson. And with Jamf Teacher, the educator can choose which apps, website, and a host of other configurations the student requires while in their lesson. After the lesson ends, the iPad returns to its default state. And the best thing is teacher can prepare this choice of apps, configs, and website in advance. So when lesson time comes around, students are up and running in a few taps of the teacher iPad. So let's cover Jamf Student, which is a tool to empower students and give them restricted permission of their own device. Using the main Jamf School console, IT can enable students to install pre-approved apps, books, and documents when they need it without an Apple ID or password, as well as like updating apps, iPadOS, and interacting with teachers. Parents can have concern about how much time their child is on the device, or if they are focused on the learning while at home. Jamf Parents empowering parents to manage, control apps and device functionality. Parents can decide if the child should have access to certain apps while doing homework, or lock down the iPad at bedtime. And with devices rules, parents can set this configuration to activate at particular times and days so they can set and forget. The Jamf Parent apps is available for iOS, Android, and on the web. Like with the Teacher and Student app, Jamf admin have ultimate control and can configure parent access so that parents can only affect devices when the school decides. All the education apps that we cover today are included in the Jamf subscription. And something else I wanted to cover is our Jamf Educator platform related to this application. Jamf Educator provides both educators and those responsible for educational technology a custom-built platform to learn about the Jamf Teacher app in a practical and applicable simulation environment. Jamf School customer can experience the simple yet powerful tools of the Jamf Teacher app without needing to set up in a live environment. I would strongly recommend for both educators and admins to look at it. And now let's move our focus to security. We recognize that every institution will have different security objectives. Built upon a strong foundation of management, Jamf unlocks a vast variety of security capabilities to ensure staff and students are safe and secure, unlocking new ways to develop learning that meets individual needs. Many institutions out there want to actually enforce acceptable use policy, not just put it in writing. Jamf is able to provide robust content filtering across every app on the device, along with threat protection to ensure end users are protected against phishing and malware threats. To maintain the simple yet powerful approach, these settings are integrated directly into Jamf School and Jamf Pro, taking advantage of current settings around groups, for example. And with safe search and restricted access, you can ensure that students are protected even when working independently. We do believe that student and staff privacy is important, and that's why we design our security products for protection over inspection. And an example of that is Jamf Safe Internet, our content filtering and network threat protection solution designed specifically for education. Not only are we ensuring students have access to only appropriate website, but we also protect them against malware, network threats, spam, and phishing attacks. Jamf Safe Internet closely integrate with our MDM solution, Jamf School and Jamf Pro. For those times when admin needs to dig into reports or amend policy when I design, brand a new console based on our commercial product, Radar, the Jamf Safe Internet console strips away complexities and focuses on workflows useful to education institutions to help admin in just a few clicks. And at Jamf, we believe, as I said before, that student and teacher privacy is very important. So Jamf Safe Internet leverages the latest DOH technology on Apple platforms to prevent harmful content without invading privacy. What about your Mac fleet? Well, we have a solution for that as well. Developed exclusively for macOS, Jamf Protect provides a complete solution to maintain endpoint compliance, monitor for, respond to, and remediate security incidents on macOS with minimal impact to the device and the end user. With the development of the education security landscape, you need a solution that protects from the ever-increasing threats targeting education institutions. And finally, identity management. Identity management is something that we hear more and more. And Jamf Connect gives admin the ability to centrally and remotely manage user and their passwords, to give access to learning and teaching tools, and giving user the ability to access Mac with a single identity that is synchronized in the cloud, reducing password fatigue, meaning the focus remain on learning and teaching and not on the IT. I hope that this brief overview shows you how Jamf is uniquely positioned to provide complete management and security solution for an Apple-first environment in education, and how the management tools go beyond the deployment, but can also impact directly on learning and teaching and provide new opportunities to empower students and teachers. Let's now talk about some of the great new enhancements for education introduced during the Apple Worldwide Developer Conference. Here they are. There are many this year. There is a lot to talk about. With the introduction of macOS Sonoma, we saw more focused software enhancements that support education, like increased accessibility support through the introduction of widgets on the desktop. This helps maintain focus on the key things that users and teachers and students need right when they need them. The presenter overlay in video calls offer new opportunities when it comes to making engaging presentation, whether teaching remotely or simply providing student alternatives to how they share their learning. This feature will be available to any video conference solution on the Mac. As education institutions continue to develop their approaches to technology-enhanced learning, iPadOS brings new tools to support how that looks in not only the traditional classroom, but providing opportunities to transform anywhere learning takes place. With the developments to Freeform, students keep focus while allowing them to follow along with the teacher as they explore new content and utilize creative tools to build on that knowledge. New apps are often quickly embraced in education and used in innovative ways. That's a good example is Journal. The Journal app gives the opportunities for learning to be collated in new ways, offering students the chance to review moments with a wealth of information to create new thoughts and ideas. And Profiles in Safari create and empower students to keep specific websites they're using together based on the subject being learned separately from the websites they use outside of learning to maintain that learning focus. Apple TV as well has long been a great way to not only share information in the classroom, but also support cost-saving approaches to AV setup while transforming what a learning space looks like. With Apple TV enhancement with FaceTime support, creative use of Apple TV can take things even further. Bring in that expert that are from outside the classroom and have them interact directly with the learners using the continuity camera right from the classroom. Furthermore, bring the guests even closer to the learners and their work. After all, there is no need for the camera to stay in one place. Apple Watch can be seen on the wrist of many students as they utilize the device for their own needs. From simple timekeeping to health and fitness tracking, with the announcement of WatchOS management, sports courses that focus on data to make improvements in analyzing performance can benefit from being able to use Apple Watch to support curriculum enhancements. Disruptive tools like Apple Vision Pro was introduced this year, which can bring a whole new way to support education by taking learners to new environments, while still connecting them to the real one. Students can make connection between the content they need to know and what it actually look like. As developers embrace this and ed tech enthusiasts explore the possibilities, this could be a real game changer in a new approach of technology-supported education. Now let's go back to Damian to tell you more about what's new with Managed Apple IDs.
Thanks, Francesco. It was indeed a massive year for Managed Apple IDs at WWDC. Teachers have the ability to scan students' Managed Apple ID into a device very, very simply and easily, reducing classroom complication. Students and teachers will have the ability to have both personal and school-issued accounts on the same device. Continuity camera, sidecar, universal control, many of the iCloud-based features that make using personal devices work so well together are coming to Managed Apple IDs, and many teachers already have both a Mac and an iPad. This development will see them working together even more easily in the school environment. Sign in with Apple has been expanded. Admins will be able to use this newer feature to govern account access where possible, and iCloud Keychain and Wallet are also being added to managed Apple IDs. So we're seeing a lot of the awesome things from using personal Apple devices make their way into the school environment now, which is fantastic. Moving on to some of the more admin-related enhancements, again, which there were many of. We have federated identity in Apple School Manager being expanded from Azure AD and Google Workspace to the OpenID Connect standard, opening it up to many, many more identity managers. We've got File Vault enablement in Setup Assistant itself. From an admin's point of view, File Vault enablement can introduce a bit of friction in the deployment process, so it's wonderful to see it come through as part of Setup Assistant now as well. Minimum OS requirements for managed devices, meaning that if you know that you only want to be supporting the current OS and perhaps the previous one, you can disallow any operating systems prior to that from accepting remote management, and there's a great managed update process involved with this as well. Forced remote management for Macs. In an expansion of features we started to see over the last couple of years, it is now going to be impossible for a device registered in automated device enrollment to be used outside of remote management. There won't be a way for people to skip accepting remote management, which is massive both for security and asset control, as well as just making the admin's life a lot easier. We've got return to service for iPad, a really quick and easy way to both reset or erase all content and settings on the iPad, but also provide Wi-Fi credentials and MDM enrollment details so that one command can have a device wiped, restored to factory settings, connected to Wi-Fi and enrolled, ready for the next user to go. So for shared environments, that's going to be a big deal. We have declarative device management expanded to cover more and more elements of managing Apple devices. We're going to get into that in a bit more detail in a moment, but quickly to talk about Apple Configurator for iPhone. We've got some expanded options there whereby a manager can choose to simply add a device to automated device enrollment. They can assign it to the auto server that's already been configured in Apple School Manager, as well as choose from all of the various MDMs associated with Apple School Manager and put it into one of those manually. So some wonderful options there, and making it even easier to bring in devices that perhaps weren't purchased through your standard purchasing model into the benefits of automated device enrollment. And the last thing for us to speak about in terms of admin enhancements from WWDC is Configurator for Mac using shortcuts. So Configurator is a well-known app in the admin community. It lets us do a lot of bulk actions on iPads, certain types of Macs as well. But now with shortcut support, the ability to automate using Configurator will be greatly expanded. So there are actions available in the Shortcuts app for update, restore, erase, and prepare iPhones and iPads. You can use it with other forms of automation that may already be in your environment. So perhaps you're not doing a whole lot of automation in Shortcuts currently. It is a newer solution, but you might have shell scripting, command line terminal commands, all of those sorts of things, Apple script potentially as well. Shortcuts is able to hook into those existing automations you've got. So whilst the Shortcuts functionality is new, you might already be very well placed to take advantage of it. And interestingly as well, in the What's New in Managing Apple Devices session from WWDC, after speaking about the Shortcuts integration into Configurator, Apple did mention that MDM vendors, such as Jamf, would be well advised to have a look at Shortcuts and see if they might be able to start supporting them as well. So I've got a few thoughts about what this might mean in the future, which we'll have a bit of a discussion about. But for now, some interesting developments there, and definitely something to read up on and keep an eye on. So we mentioned it just before though, the last little bit of a technical deep dive that we'll do with you this morning is what's new in declarative device management. It is absolutely a new topic that a lot of people haven't had a chance to get their minds around fully just yet, but the slides that we've got coming up for you in this next section are going to be invaluable. If you're a technical person, an IT manager, needing to explain the change, why it's different, why it's better, I think the slides that we've got coming up for you right now are going to be very helpful. So, imperative device management is the term for what we have all referred to basically as MDM up until this point. So it's important to understand what problem Apple is trying to solve with declarative device management. So imperative device management is slow. It's hard for MDM vendors to build for, and the onus is on MDM vendors like Jamf to build in all the new features and then build a UI around it. It's hard to scale. Look at software update. Command is sent. Device responds. Query the state. Device responds, sends the state back, and then further commands like that. That's the current way of doing it under imperative device management. And when you see that that's just one device talking back to the server, this is why it's not really possible to send out a command for software update for 10,000 devices and have it go smoothly. Anytime anything changes, we need to query it from the MDM to the device. If something fails for whatever reason, we need to keep queuing up the command again and again. Declarative device management is a solution to these problems and an enhanced way of working with devices at all scales. Let's have a look at how that same interaction works with DDM. There's lots of differences, but here's one small example. Status channels are a huge new change to DDM. An MDM vendor can subscribe to status channels on the device. The device will then report back any changes to the vendor anytime there's a change of information. So rather than the back and forth, Jamf is listening for a change and the device is now smart enough to know when to send that information to Jamf proactively. In a real-world example, we might subscribe to the device OS version, and as soon as that data changes on the device, we're notified. That's huge because previously we had to query that over and over to get that detail. And depending on what we're querying and what it means for our product, there's a lot of knock-on steps that need to be handled with imperative device management. For software updates, that's lots of logic built into Jamf Pro on how to handle a software update. This gives you a really simple understanding of what changes on the grand scale and why that's so important. So, how do they compare? Imperative device management, very chatty, a lot of back and forth. It's hard to scale, lots of logic for some workflows, but hard to expose custom MDM commands. With declarative device management, it matches Apple's programming approach. It's more scalable, it's autonomous, and it's easier for Jamf to implement new additions as well. So, declarative device management has been with us for a few years now. Apple are expanding which elements of device management are covered under the new DDM framework, and we have some wonderful new updates here. So, managing software updates, now part of DDM. App deployment enhancements, support for deployment certificates, support for a managed set of service configurations. That's a really interesting one, being able to configure more under the bonnet, highly technical services such as SSH, CUPS, Apache, sudo, PAM, ZSH, Bash, it's all there. Migration of legacy profiles in iOS, iPadOS, and macOS. Anybody who knows that a change to configuration profile format can have interesting implications for how you remove the previous profile to get the new one on there. That's becoming a lot simpler now as well. And using status items for managed device insights in macOS, things like file vault, launch daemons, launch agents, getting a little bit better visibility on those and being able to take certain management steps as a result of the status of each of those. So, that's what we've got for declarative device management this year. It stands to reason that we'll see more and more added over the years to declarative device management as it definitely becomes the new normal. So, with all of Jamf's updates there and some WWDC features that we've just covered here. It's been a pretty big webinar so far in terms of new information. And I think, Francesco, now perhaps let's have a little bit of a discussion about some of the points that we've seen here as well.
Sounds great. Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much for going through all of that. There was definitely a lot to take in. And I'm sure our audience is curious to know more.
Absolutely. And I think, well, if I can start off potentially with a question to you, Francesco. You talked about the Jamf school solution being available. We heard about all the wonderful included apps that I have a couple of questions about in a moment. But it's really impressive to see Jamf School's Mac management capabilities grow in the way that they have, and particularly, being able to use Jamf Connect, Jamf Safe Internet there as well. So when it comes to Jamf School, particularly as one of the newer Jamf solutions, are there any other Mac-related enhancements that you'd like to highlight for now?
I suppose with all the great enhancements Apple introduced at WWDC, our team is working tirelessly to provide these new functionalities in Jamf School as soon as they're going to get released. So I think we'll see a lot more about those once macOS Sonoma will be released later in the spring. So yeah, I'll keep you updated on those. Okay.
Reading between the lines, maybe there is going to be some awesome stuff there, but all in good time. Onto the Jamf included apps. Really glad that you highlighted that not only have Jamf made Jamf Student, Jamf Teacher, Jamf Parent, but they're actually freely included. So if you're purchasing Jamf licenses for Jamf School or Jamf Pro, you get these apps as well. And I think, coming back to the earlier point I made about technology existing to make our lives easier, and I guess particularly in the education environment, do everything you can to let technology lighten the load, particularly from an admin point of view. There are so many things about these apps that help out in that regard as well. And I really want to get onto Jamf Parent, but just before I do, to quickly give you, I guess, an example from my personal experience. When I was an IT manager, Jamf School was the solution I chose to put in place. And one of the favourite things about Jamf Teacher is the app request workflow. So IT managers and teachers who are watching this may have experienced a bit of a frustrating, sometimes very confusing back and forth when a teacher says, I'd like app A installed on my class's iPads, please. And it turns out when you search in Apple School Manager to obtain those licenses, there are many, many search results for app A, and you have to get into the detail and it can get a little bit confusing. Jamf Teacher's app request workflow avoids all of that by simply allowing the teachers to go to the apps page within the App Store itself, really simply tap the share button, and then the Jamf Teacher app will be one of the share options there. Tap on that, and that app request workflow goes through to the nominated recipients who can make a decision, purchase the licensing, all of that sort of stuff as well. So you might not be wasting hours and hours a week with that sort of issue, but teachers' time is very important, admin's time is very important, and if we can save it by using something like this, then awesome. So that's one of my favourite things about Jamf Teacher, but I guess one thing that really strikes me about the Jamf Parent app is how elegant a solution it is to many of the maybe secondary problems of using devices at school and in a one-to-one environment where they go home. It is a common issue for parents to bring to a school when they have problems about device usage at home. And so, given devices can only be managed by one MDM, a student's family without something like Jamf Parent has no way of managing that device's usage when it's not at school. So IT leaders, school leadership, teaching staff, those of you who might have involvement with your parents and friends, all of that, all of those people who are concerned not only about the pedagogical performance of the device at school, but worried about how devices are used at home, if they're being used constructively, if maybe too many game type apps are being used versus the study related ones. Jamf Parent really gives both the school and the parents the ability to manage that in a way that hasn't really been possible before. And just again, taking a personal example, when we deployed Jamf Parent at my school, we ran a school info night. We educated our parent and guardian community about what was possible. There were many who opted out from taking this direct approach, and for those parents we actually put in a pretty simple set of restrictions that covered off being able to do homework, restricting device usage as it got closer to bed by only allowing, I think it was Mathletics and the reading app. And after bedtime, those devices were basically non-functional until that restriction was lifted shortly before arriving at school the next morning. So there are so many different ways that you can use Jamf Parent to head off some of those quite contentious issues that parents can bring to you in terms of the constructive use of device at home. So there you go. That's one of my key takeaways from Jamf Parent as well. Francesco, I don't know if potentially you might have any other stories about the usage of those apps that you might like to share with everybody?
Yeah, sure. Especially in the Jamf Parent apps. We have seen a lot of deployments where the Jamf Parent app has been successful to help school implementing a one-to-one deployment of iPads in the specific. And so I would really suggest to have a look into it if you're already using Jamf Pro or Jamf School. It's really a game changer in a lot of situations, because kind of provide that support to the parents that feel like the device is secure and control and manage also when the device goes home and not only when the device is at school. So that's really for the rest. You've done a really good job of covering everything on the Jamf app. So thank you.
Well, I do sincerely value them in my life. So yeah, very easy to speak highly of these apps. And I think one last thing to pick up on the configurator support for shortcuts. I guess from a personal point of view, Shortcuts is very near and dear to my heart. I actually presented at Jamf's conference JNUC last year in San Diego about using shortcuts to access Jamf's APIs and customize and extend your approach to your Jamf solution. And so as much as this might be a development that is entirely fitting in with what I was hoping and dreaming might be the case, I'll try and just damp down my excitement and restrain myself. And just to follow on from what I was saying before, Apple have concluded the management session at WWDC that everybody in our industry watches by saying that shortcuts is something that Apple thinks MDM vendors should start supporting to enable this increased level of automation. So it's one thing that I'm getting strong vibes from the way Apple are talking about shortcuts now to how we heard about, you know, imaging's not the only way that you can deploy a Mac. There's this awesome thing called DEP that you might want to have a look at. So without knowing for sure that that's the direction that we're going in, I'm thinking that maybe shortcuts in 2023 is very much like having DEP put on our radars, what, 7, 8 years ago now. So definitely something to have a look at. I will be continuing to make my shortcuts and making them publicly available. So if that's something that you'd like to learn more about, definitely get in touch with us at Compnow, and a message will come through to me, and I am capable of talking your ear off on shortcuts. So it's a real under the radar tool at the moment, and I think it's about to make itself known to a lot more admins, and looking forward to seeing it utilised even more. It's a great app. So I think, yeah, interesting times to come for the development of shortcuts in the admin community. So yeah, exciting times, Francesco. It was a very exciting conclusion to that managing devices session to see Apple call that out.
Absolutely, Damian. I'm sure we will see a lot more on those. We're just going to have to keep waiting a few months, and then we'll see what happens. Exactly.
Well, I think that's everything that we had on our quite packed schedule for you in our webinar. So Francesco, thank you so much for taking us through the Jamf portfolio and having a bit of a chat about WWDC as well. It's been a great time, and again, another example of Jamf and Compnow working together as we do. I know this is going to be one of a number of webinars we're doing with the Jamf team, so keep an eye out for that. And I suppose from the Compnow point of view, if anything that you've heard today piques your interest, if it's something you'd like to know how it would apply to your school's environment and requirements, I'll be speaking to you soon, no doubt. And yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Take care.